The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as two young black men stood before the judge, their faces unreadable. Across the room, a group of uniformed officers sat with smug grins, exchanging quiet chuckles like they had already won. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made people shift in their seats and glance around uncomfortably. These officers, men sworn to protect and serve, had done the unthinkable. They had framed innocent brothers, laughed in their faces, and now waited for the gavel to drop, believing they had buried the truth beneath layers of lies. But what they didn't know, what no one in that courtroom knew, was that these brothers weren't just any two men off the street. They weren't criminals, and they certainly weren't helpless. They were FBI agents, deep undercover, sent to expose the very corruption that had led them here. The officers' laughter was hollow, their confidence misplaced. The moment of reckoning was coming. But before this, before the trial, before the lies, there was a moment that changed everything. A simple moment in a crowded bus when a teenage boy made a choice that would alter his life forever. It was a chilly afternoon, the kind where the city felt restless. People shuffled onto the packed bus, clutching their coats tight against the wind. Among them was a young black teen, about 17, headphones draped around his neck, tapping a rhythm on his jeans. He was tired from a long day, but too polite to ignore the people around him. That's when he noticed her, a pregnant woman, white, visibly exhausted, one hand resting on her belly, the other gripping the overhead rail as she struggled to keep her balance. Without a second thought, he stood. "Ma'am, you can have my seat," he said, offering her a small smile. Surprised, she hesitated for a second before nodding gratefully. "Thank you," she murmured as she carefully sat down. For the next few minutes, they rode in silence. The teen didn't think much of it, just another small act of kindness in a world that often forgot such things mattered. But as he prepared to step off at his stop, the woman reached out, pressing a small folded note into his hand. "Read it later," she whispered, her eyes locking onto his for just a moment before he disappeared into the crowded street. Curious, he waited until he was alone to unfold the paper. His eyes skimmed the words, and suddenly his breath hitched. His hands shook slightly as he read it again, just to be sure. This wasn't just a thank you note. It was a message that would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. The teen's fingers tightened around the note as he stood on the sidewalk, his heart pounding. The sounds of the city faded into the background, replaced by the words scrawled in shaky handwriting on the small piece of paper. "You are in danger. Trust no one." For a moment, he just stood there, staring at the note. The words didn't make sense. He had never seen that woman before. How could she know him? And why would she say he was in danger? His eyes darted around the street, scanning the faces of strangers, suddenly feeling exposed. Was someone watching him? He shoved the note into his pocket and started walking, trying to clear his head. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe the woman was confused. But deep down, something told him it wasn't random. There was a weight in those words, a quiet urgency in the way she handed him the note. It didn't feel like a prank. It felt like a warning. By the time he reached home, his mind was still racing. His older brother, Jason, was in the kitchen, flipping through a newspaper like he actually cared about the headlines. Jason was the kind of guy who always had a plan, always thinking 2 steps ahead. If anyone could make sense of this, it was him. "Yo, something weird happened," the teen said, tossing his bag onto the couch. Jason didn't look up. "Weird how?" He pulled the note from his pocket and slid it across the table. Jason read it, his easygoing expression darkening. "Where'd you get this?" "I gave up my seat for this pregnant lady on the bus. Before I got off, she handed it to me." Jason leaned back, running a hand over his face. His reaction sent a chill through the teen's spine. Jason wasn't the type to get rattled easily. "You think it's serious?" the teen asked. Jason's jaw tightened. "I don't know, but if it is, you need to be careful." The teen frowned. "Careful of what? I don't even know what this means." Jason didn't answer right away. He was staring at the note like he was trying to see beyond the words, like something about it felt familiar. Finally, he stood up. "You need to tell me exactly what happened, from the moment you got on the bus to the moment you got off."
So he did.
He told Jason about the packed bus, the woman's tired eyes, how she hesitated before sitting down, and how she barely spoke, except for that one moment when she pressed the note into his hand. Jason exhaled slowly. And you're sure you never saw her before? I mean, not that I remember. Jason nodded, deep in thought.
All right.
For now, don't tell anyone about this. Not Mom, not your friends. Nobody. The teen raised an eyebrow. Okay, but why? Because if this is real, we don't know who we can trust. The words sent a shiver through him. Jason wasn't being dramatic. He was being careful. And that meant something was seriously wrong. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Every sound outside his window made him jump. Every shadow in the room felt like it was watching him. The words of the note replayed in his mind. You are in danger. Trust no one. He didn't know what kind of danger or who the warning was even about. But as he drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought clung to him. Who was that woman? And why did she care what happened to him? The next morning, things felt almost normal. Almost. Jason acted casual, but the teen could tell he was thinking about the note. They didn't talk about it in front of their mom. Jason had made it clear they needed to keep this quiet. At school, the teen tried to push it out of his mind, but something was different. Maybe it was paranoia, but he swore people were looking at him longer than usual. A teacher gave him a strange glance in the hallway. A classmate whispered something as he walked by. Maybe he was imagining it. Maybe he wasn't. By the time the last bell rang, he was exhausted from overthinking. He was about to head home when his phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Hello. A voice on the other end sent a chill down his spine. It was a woman. And it wasn't just any woman, it was her. Don't go home, she said, her voice urgent. They're waiting for you. His breath caught in his throat.
What?
Who's waiting for me? But the line went dead. The teen's hand tightened around the phone as he stared at the blank screen. His heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear the voices of students passing by. His instincts screamed at him to call Jason, but something held him back. If the woman was right, if someone was waiting for him at home, then calling his brother might only put him in danger too. He needed to think. He needed to move. Slipping his phone into his pocket, he walked out of the school, trying to act normal. Every step felt heavy, like the weight of an unseen threat was pressing down on him. Was someone following him? Was the woman watching him right now? He glanced around, careful not to be obvious. The streets were busy, full of kids heading home, cars honking, people going about their day. It all looked normal, but he knew better now. Normal could be a lie. Instead of heading toward his house, he took a different route, cutting through back streets, weaving through alleys, making sure no one was on his tail. His mind raced with questions. Who was they? What did they want? When he was far enough, he ducked into a small diner on the corner, one he and Jason used to hit up when they were younger. It was quiet, mostly empty except for an old man reading a newspaper and a waitress refilling salt shakers behind the counter. He slid into a booth, his back to the wall so he could see the entrance. He needed time to think, time to figure out his next move. His fingers tapped anxiously against the table as he replayed the call in his head. The woman sounded urgent, almost scared. But why warn him? If she was in on whatever this was, wouldn't it be easier to stay silent? Unless she was trying to help. The waitress approached, smiling politely. What can I get you, sweetheart? Just a soda. He needed something in his hands, something to ground him. She nodded and walked away. His phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. He hesitated before answering. You're smart not going home. The woman's voice was quieter this time, more controlled. Who are you? He asked, his voice low. Someone who knows the truth, she said. Listen carefully. You and your brother are in danger. The people you think you can trust? You can't. His stomach twisted. Who? Who's after us? I can't say over the phone. Meet me. A loud crash erupted from the other end of the call, followed by a muffled shout. His grip tightened around the phone. Hello? Are you there? Silence. Then, just before the line cut off, he heard one final whisper. Run. His breath came fast as he lowered the phone. His pulse was so loud, he could barely think.
Run?
From what? From who? The waitress returned, setting his soda down with a small smile. You okay, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost. He forced a nod, but his mind was spinning. He needed to find Jason.
Now.
Fishing a few crumpled bills from his pocket, he tossed them onto the table and hurried outside. The street felt different now. The buildings seemed taller, the shadows deeper. He walked quickly, blending into the crowd, heading toward Jason's usual spot, the gym a few blocks away. As he reached the corner, a black car pulled up across the street. The windows were tinted, the engine idling. He slowed his pace, heart pounding. The driver wasn't moving, wasn't looking at him. But the timing, it was too perfect. Without hesitating, he turned the other way and started walking faster. He could feel it now. Someone was watching. Just as he turned the next block, another car, silver, unmarked, slowed down ahead of him. Panic surged through him. This wasn't random. They were tracking him. He ducked into a convenience store, moving quickly to the back where the security cameras couldn't see him. His mind raced. Jason always told him to be aware of his surroundings, to never let his guard down. But he never thought he'd actually have to use that advice. Reaching for his phone, he dialed Jason. It rang once.
Twice.
Then Jason's voice came through, low and urgent. Where are you? I think someone's following me, he whispered. 2 cars. Black and silver. Tinted windows. They're not random, Jay. I know they're not. Jason swore under his breath. All right. Listen to me. Stay where you are. I'm coming to you. The line cut. The teen pressed his back against the shelves, breathing hard. The store clerk glanced at him, but didn't say anything. Minutes passed like hours. Then, through the glass door, he saw Jason's car pull up. He ran out, jumped into the passenger seat, and locked the door. Jason peeled off down the street, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. Tell me everything.
So he did.
The note. The phone call. The warning. The cars. Jason's grip tightened on the wheel. It's happening faster than I thought. The teen's stomach dropped. What's happening? Jason didn't answer right away. His jaw was tight, his eyes scanning the road. Finally, he said, We're not who we think we are. The words sent a chill through him. What does that mean? Jason exhaled sharply. It means Mom lied to us. It means Dad wasn't who she said he was. Confusion and fear crashed into him at once. Jason, what are you talking about? Jason shook his head. I don't have all the answers yet. But I know this. Those cops, the ones who laughed at us in court, they think they won. They think we're just 2 kids with nowhere to go. Jason's grip on the wheel tightened. But they don't know who they're messing with. The teen's breath came fast as Jason kept his grip tight on the wheel, navigating the car through the narrow back streets. The black SUV was still on them, its tires screeching as it closed the distance. The chase wasn't ending anytime soon. Jason's eyes flicked to the side mirror, then to his brother. You trust me? The teen swallowed hard, gripping the USB in his palm.
Yeah.
Jason exhaled sharply. Then don't freak out. Before the teen could ask what that meant, Jason yanked the emergency brake, spinning the car in a sharp, gut-wrenching turn. The tires screamed against the pavement as the car skidded sideways into an old garage, its rusted doors flinging open from the impact. The teen's head snapped back as Jason slammed the brakes, stopping just inches from a stack of crates. The car groaned under the force, but they had made it. Jason threw it in park and grabbed his brother's arm. Out. Now. The teen didn't hesitate. They scrambled out of the car just as the SUV came screeching to a stop outside. The men jumped out, moving fast. Jason grabbed the teen by the hoodie and dragged him behind an old stack of tires. Stay low. Footsteps echoed through the garage. The men weren't hesitating anymore. They were here to end this. Jason pressed his back against the wall, exhaling slowly. Then, in one smooth motion, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. Not his usual one, a different one, smaller, almost ancient-looking. The teen frowned. What is that? Jason ignored him, hitting a number and putting the phone to his ear. A single ring. Then a voice answered. "I told you not to call this number." Jason spoke fast, urgent. "They found us. We need extraction." The line went silent. Then finally, the voice spoke again. "Where are you?" Jason's jaw clenched. "Old warehouse on 6. They boxed us in." A pause. Then the voice said something that made the teen's blood run cold. "Hold tight. Reinforcements are on the way." Reinforcements? Who was Jason talking to? Before he could ask, a loud voice echoed through the garage. "Enough games.
Come out now."
The teen's pulse hammered. Jason's grip on his shoulder tightened. "Listen to me," Jason whispered. "No matter what happens, you don't give them that USB." The teen's heart pounded. "Who are these people, Jason? What's on this thing?" Jason didn't answer. He just looked at his brother, something heavy in his eyes. Then, before the teen could stop him, Jason stood up and stepped into the open. The men immediately raised their weapons, but Jason lifted his hands. "Relax. I just want to talk." The tall man from before stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "It's too late for that." Jason tilted his head. "Is it?" The man studied him for a moment, then took another step forward. "You think calling for help is going to save you?" Jason's jaw clenched. "Maybe." The man's eyes flicked toward the teen, still hidden behind the crates. His gaze darkened. "You don't even know the truth, do you?" The man said, almost amused. "Your father, he wasn't the man you thought he was." The teen felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. Jason's fists clenched, but he kept his voice steady.
"Funny.
You say that like we don't already know." The man smirked. "Then you know that he wasn't just some ordinary guy. He was one of us." The teen's stomach dropped. His father, one of them? Jason didn't react, but something in his eyes shifted. The man stepped closer. "Your father worked with us for years, but he betrayed us. And now, you two are left picking up the pieces of a mess he made." The teen's hands tightened into fists. His father was gone, had been for years. But now, these people were trying to rewrite everything he thought he knew. Jason shook his head.
"Nah."
"See, I don't think our dad betrayed you." He took a slow step forward. "I think he found out the truth. And I think that scared you." The man's smirk faded. Jason nodded slightly.
"Yeah."
"That's what I thought." Then, from outside the garage, tires screeched. The men turned sharply, caught off guard. Jason smirked. "Told you." Reinforcements. The next moment, the garage doors burst open, and everything turned to chaos. A rush of headlights flooded the garage as the doors flew open, and the sound of screeching tires filled the air. Armed men poured in, moving with precision, their presence shifting the balance of power in an instant. The men who had been chasing Jason and his brother tensed, their hands twitching toward their weapons, but they didn't fire. Not yet. They knew this had just turned into something much bigger. The teen's heart pounded as he stayed low behind the crates, gripping the USBs so tightly his fingers hurt. He wanted to run, to escape this chaos, but Jason's words kept ringing in his head. "Don't give it to them." Jason, still standing in the open, smirked slightly. "Took you long enough," he muttered. From the group of new arrivals, a woman stepped forward, her presence commanding. She was dressed in dark tactical gear, her expression unreadable. But there was something in her eyes, a sharpness, a recognition as she glanced between Jason and the man leading the opposing side. "Agent West," she said, her tone even. "You've been busy." The tall man, the one who had been leading the chase, relaxed his stance, but his jaw was tight. "This is bureau business," he said. "You have no jurisdiction here." The woman raised an eyebrow. "That's funny, because last I checked, they do." She nodded toward Jason and the teen. The room went still. The teen's stomach twisted. What did she mean by they? Jason's expression didn't change, but the way his fingers twitched at his sides told the teen he knew exactly what was going on. The woman turned toward them, her gaze locking onto the USB in the teen's hand. "That drive," she said carefully, "is proof of everything. Your father knew what they were doing, and they got rid of him for it." The teen's breath hitched. Jason's shoulders squared. We already figured that part out. The woman nodded. But what you don't know is that your father didn't just find the truth. He gave it to someone. Someone who's been watching over you ever since. For the first time, the tall man, Agent West, looked uneasy. Jason exhaled sharply, shaking his head.
No.
That's not possible. The woman stepped closer. You already know it is. Her gaze flicked to the teen. You ever wonder why, after all these years, you were never really in danger? Why they never came for you before now? The teen's pulse pounded.
Why?
The woman glanced back at West. Because your father made a deal. He knew they would come for him, but he made sure they would never touch you. She turned back to Jason. Until you started digging. Jason's expression darkened. So what? He sacrificed himself to protect us. The woman hesitated. Then she said, not just to protect you, to give you the chance to finish what he started. The weight of her words settled between them, thick and heavy. West took a slow step forward, his expression hard. Enough of this. The drive belongs to us. Jason let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I don't think so. West's patience finally snapped.
He signaled to his men.
Take them. But before anyone could move, the woman raised her hand. I wouldn't do that. West glared. And why not? A slow smile spread across her face. Because you're already exposed. West froze. The woman pulled out her own phone and turned it around. A red light was blinking at the top of the screen. She had been live-streaming the entire conversation. West's face drained of color as he realized what that meant. The woman's voice was calm but firm. The whole world just heard you admit to everything. There's no covering this up. The teen's stomach flipped. He hadn't even realized she had been recording. But now, it was over. West's jaw clenched. His men hesitated, waiting for his command. But he didn't give one. He couldn't. Jason exhaled, finally relaxing his stance. Guess that means we're free to go? The woman nodded. More than that. You're free to finish what your father started. She looked at the USB in the teen's hand. That drive still has secrets. It's time to make them known. The teen looked at Jason unsure. But Jason just gave a small nod. Let's do this. As they stepped past West, the teen expected him to lash out, to try one last time to stop them. But he didn't. He just stood there, defeated. The woman led them toward the exit, where a car was waiting. Before they got in, the teen turned back one last time. West was watching them, his expression unreadable. But as their eyes met, he said something the teen would never forget. This isn't over. A chill ran down the teen's spine. Jason put a hand on his shoulder. Come on. We've got work to do. And with that, they got into the car, driving toward a future they never could have imagined. As the car sped through the city streets, the teen clutched the USB tightly, his mind racing. The weight of everything that had just happened pressed on his chest. The truth about their father, the years of lies, the fact that they had just exposed powerful people in a way that couldn't be undone. It felt surreal. Jason, sitting next to him, was staring straight ahead, his grip firm on the wheel. The woman, still calm and collected, sat in the back, watching them carefully. You did good, she finally said. The teen turned toward her, his pulse still unsteady. So, what happens now? She leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on her knees. That depends on you. You have the truth. You have the proof. But exposing corruption doesn't mean it just disappears. Jason let out a slow breath. They're gonna come after us, aren't they? The woman didn't answer right away, but the silence was enough. They'll regroup, she admitted. People like them always do. But the difference now is that they're out in the open. And that means they're vulnerable. The teen swallowed hard. He thought back to West's final words. This isn't over. A part of him had hoped it was just an empty threat, but deep down he knew better. Jason glanced at him. You okay? The teen nodded, but his mind was still racing. Then something struck him. He looked down at the USB, turning it over in his fingers. There's more on here, isn't there? The woman smiled slightly. There's always more. Jason exhaled. shaking his head. And I'm guessing we don't get to just walk away from this? The woman's expression didn't change. That's up to you. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the choice hung in the air between them. Then, finally, Jason nodded. We finish what our dad started. The woman gave a small nod of approval. Good. Just as she said it, Jason's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression tightening. The teen leaned over. What is it? Jason didn't answer right away. He just turned the screen toward him. It was a single message. No sender name. Just 4 words. You missed something. Look deeper. The teen's stomach dropped. Jason's gaze flicked to the rearview mirror, scanning the road behind them. We're not done yet. The woman leaned forward, her tone suddenly sharp. Pull over.
Now.
Jason didn't hesitate. He swerved the car to the side of the road, the tires skidding slightly as he stopped. The woman immediately reached for her laptop, her fingers moving fast. The teen's hands were clammy as he looked back at Jason. What does it mean? Look deeper? Jason shook his head. I don't know. The woman didn't look up from the screen. Whoever sent that message, they know something we don't. The tension in the air was thick. The teen watched as the woman's screen filled with lines of code, encrypted files flashing by. Then, suddenly, she stopped. Her face paled. Jason leaned closer. What? What is it? The woman swallowed hard before turning the laptop toward them. The screen showed a single file, one that had been hidden inside the USB's encryption. A file that hadn't been touched in years. It was labeled with their father's name. The teen felt his breath catch. Jason's hands clenched into fists. Open it. The woman hesitated for only a moment before she clicked. A video file appeared. And then, their father's face filled the screen. The teen's world tilted. His father looked older, tired, but his eyes were sharp, filled with urgency. He leaned toward the camera, his voice low. If you're watching this, then I'm gone. The teen's hands shook as he stared at the screen. Jason was frozen, his jaw tight. Their father took a breath, glancing over his shoulder, as if checking to see if he was being watched. Then he turned back. There's something bigger at play, he said. Everything you've uncovered, it's only the beginning. The teen felt his chest tighten. Jason leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. Dad, what did you do? The video continued. Their father's expression darkened. They'll come for you, he warned. They'll try to make you believe this ends here. But it doesn't. The truth is still buried, deeper than you can imagine. He hesitated, his gaze steady. And if you want to survive, you have to be willing to go all the way. The video cut out. Silence filled the car. The teen's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Jason finally exhaled, running a hand over his face. Guess we're not done after all. The woman closed the laptop. No, she said quietly. Not even close. The car sat in silence for a long moment. Then, slowly, Jason put it back in gear, pulling onto the road. Ahead of them, the city stretched out, filled with secrets still waiting to be uncovered. The car moved steadily through the night, the hum of the engine the only sound between them. The teen stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past, his mind still replaying the video of their father over and over again. It didn't feel real. He had spent so many years thinking of him as a man who simply got caught up in something bigger than himself. But now, he knew the truth. His father had been ready for this. He had known the danger, known what was coming. And instead of running, he had left behind a path for them to follow. Jason's grip on the wheel was tight, his expression unreadable. The weight of their father's final message sat heavy between them. There was no turning back now. The woman, who had revealed so much but still felt like a mystery, watched them carefully. She had known more than she let on from the start, but for the first time, she looked just as uncertain as they felt. We need to find out what he meant, Jason finally said, breaking the silence. The woman exhaled, nodding. We will. But you both need to understand something. This isn't about revenge. It's not about exposing one corrupt man, or even one corrupt agency. This is about something much bigger. And once you open that door, there's no closing it. The teen swallowed hard. So, what do we do? Jason glanced at him. We make sure it's worth it." They drove in silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts. The city outside felt different now, less like home, more like a place filled with ghosts and shadows. By the time they pulled into the underground parking lot of a nondescript building, the tension in the air had settled into something heavier. The woman led them inside, through a series of locked doors and down a narrow hallway. They finally entered a small room, lined with monitors and equipment, the glow of screens casting long shadows. Jason set the USB down on the desk. "Show us everything." The woman nodded, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Lines of code scrolled across the screens, files unlocking one by one. The teen watched as old records, hidden messages, and classified reports filled the monitors. There were names he didn't recognize, places that meant nothing to him, but it was clear this wasn't just about their father. This was about something deeper, something bigger. Jason leaned in, his eyes scanning the files. "This is a network," he murmured. "Not just one agency. Not just one group. It's a system." The woman nodded. "And your father cracked it." The teen's pulse quickened. "Then why didn't he take them down?" She hesitated. "Because he knew he couldn't do it alone." Jason exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. "So, he left it to us." The woman's gaze was steady. "He left it to someone. Whether that's you, that's your choice." The teen looked at his brother. Jason was always the strong one, the one who had taken care of him, protected him. But this was something even he hadn't been prepared for. Jason looked at him, searching his face. "We don't have to do this." The teen thought about their father, about the years of silence, the missing pieces of their past. He thought about Agent West, about the way he had looked at them before they drove away, like a man who had lost a battle but not the war. He thought about all the people who had been hurt, manipulated, and silenced because of what was on that USB. And then he thought about what their father had said. "If you want to survive, you have to be willing to go all the way." He met Jason's eyes. "We do have to do this." Jason searched his face for a moment, then nodded.
"All right."
The woman smiled faintly, as if she had expected nothing less. "Then let's get to work." The next few days were a blur. They pored over the files, piecing together the story their father had left behind. They followed encrypted messages, traced hidden transactions, uncovered connections between people in power who should have never crossed paths. The deeper they went, the clearer it became, this wasn't just a case of corruption. This was a system designed to protect the powerful, to keep the truth buried. And yet, their father had found a crack in the foundation. Jason worked tirelessly, cross-referencing files, pulling together everything they needed to make their case airtight. The teen followed the trail their father had left, unlocking messages, finding patterns, making sense of what had once been hidden. And when they finally had everything, the full picture, undeniable and irrefutable, they knew what they had to do. They didn't go to the media. That would be too easy to silence. They didn't go to the authorities, because too many of them were already compromised. Instead, they went straight to the people. The woman helped them set up a secure platform, one that couldn't be taken down, one that ensured the information would spread faster than anyone could contain it. They released everything: the names, the evidence, the proof of every crime that had been committed in the shadows. And then they waited. The reaction was immediate. The files spread like wildfire, people demanding answers, demanding justice. Investigations were launched, resignations began piling up. And, just as their father had warned, the people who had built this system tried to fight back. But it was too late. The truth was out. And no matter what they did, no matter how hard they tried to cover it up, the world had seen too much to look away. The teen stood beside Jason, watching the news reports roll in, watching the chaos unfold. Jason let out a slow breath. "We did it." The teen nodded. But in the back of his mind, he knew this was only the beginning. Jason must have sensed it, too, because he turned to him and said, "You ready?" The teen looked at his brother, at the woman who had stood by their side, at the files still sitting open on the screens in front of them. And he nodded, because their father had been right all along. The truth was still buried, and they were just getting started.